from rappelling out of a helicopter to night insertions, pretending as if I was in the Marine Corps at the Naval Academy, to now, being responsible for post-delivery tests and trials of the newest aircraft carrier in the fleet. Just phenomenal opportunities. And every day I go to work, I just, sometimes you have to pinch yourself when you think about all of the cool things that we do. So this slide is titled Sheep, and you're like, well, what the heck do sheep have to do with your journey? Well, so I share the story, and I hope I don't embarrass my mother who's online, but for me, it all goes back to Missouri, right? When I grew up in Missouri, I grew up working in rural areas where there were just a lot of really hardworking people. And I work really hard today. And so I think back to those times when we raised sheep, and my mom, at 4 a.m. with her arm, assisting a sheep to deliver a ewe or a lamb. And all of just the hard work that she did in order to provide for us, teach us about life, teach us about hard work, teach us about what it means to really dig in and work for what you want and to achieve the goals that you have. So when I think about my life and why I am a trailblazer, why I am where I am today, it all goes back to that hard work that she taught me how to do and encouraged me to do. Also, I have these vivid memories of my mother, down in the basement, either fixing the refrigerator or messing around with the water heater or, things like that. It's these little things that you learn from your mother or your father, whoever you're with, that help you become and craft you into the person that you ultimately become. She taught me to use my curiosity, back to the systems engineering comments. How are you using your normal everyday curiosity to drive you in whatever you're doing, to include troubleshooting and repairing of a water heater? If anyone had ever told me that I would be the chief engineer of an aircraft carrier someday, as a young kid, I think I probably would have laughed and said, there is no way, and then there I was, and in fact, before me, there were only 12 women before me that have ever had that job. So that's pretty cool. When you think, you step back and you're like, that's phenomenal. So what skills did I use? I mean, troubleshooting of systems, I did it every day, all day long. It was troubleshooting of systems. And you can teach your children how to do that in your own basement or in your own kitchen or in your own backyard. How do you replace, the pool pump? How do you replace the garbage disposal? How do you fix the dishwasher? It's all stuff that you can do as long as you know how to download drawings, read the drawings, and just be willing to be vulnerable enough to try. So you have to have courage. So in anyone's life, you spend a lot of time overcoming adversity, right? So I do share a couple stories here. After I returned to work with my first daughter, I think one of the questions about, comparison with your male counterparts, you have fewer work hours because before you have children, it's just work, right? So it's easy to continue to be successful by working hard. I think having my children really forced me to have to dig deep into who I was as a person and come up with better priorities. And so it's not just the mechanics of the things that I listed on the slide, but it's really, at the end of the workday, do I have to finish this email or do I need to go home and spend time with my kids? Making those tough decisions, the big ones are kind of easy, but the little decisions every day that I make consciously are really what kind of define my ability to proceed being in my mind, a good mother, as well as being a good naval officer. And that takes balance. So how do I cope and how do I balance those things? My faith is huge, right? If I didn't have my church family and the gals that I trust with my kids, I don't know that I would be able to handle everything that I can. I believe every day that I'm going to have everything that I need exactly when I need it. I just have to keep my eyes open to be able to see what opportunities lay in front of me. For me, I also had to believe that failure was an option. It wasn't until I realized and fully embraced the fact that I could get fired every day of the week for something that I didn't have anything to do with, or that I could just fail at something, that I became more successful. Because I think when you approach that life that way and with that understanding, you're able to lean in a little bit more, and you're able to drive yourself to levels that otherwise you wouldn't be able to achieve. I definitely take one day at a time, like I said, and I focus on my small victories. What were my wins today? Because, we talked about COVID a little bit earlier. And in the COVID times, it's easy to get down on ourselves and get depressed and frustrated. My mom can tell you, she's my sounding board. I call her all the time. And she's always encouraging me to take a step back and look at what were all the great things that happened today, right? Because where you stare, you steer, right? So if I'm staring at all the negative things in my life, then I'm steering into the negative. If I stare at all the positive things and all the mountains I've climbed, then I'm going to steer over those mountains. So I definitely believe in that. And then making sure that I keep myself a priority, right? As a single parent and as, the officer that I am in charge of the Ford program that I work, my portion of it at least, it's easy to move yourself down on your own priority list. And if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm not able to do my job. So here, I share some of my milestone achievements. At Naval Postgraduate School, I got a grant and then ultimately got to present at the Acoustical Society of America meeting. I was a fleet engineer awardee. I did the Surface Team 1 stuff that we talked about. I presented technical papers. I got to travel around the Horn of Africa with the political advisor to the Admiral and show her how we executed programs and projects. I've received different awards for diversity, but with all that being said, the two best achievements of my life, and now I'm thinking maybe they're not my achievements. I guess they are my pride and joy, though. My two daughters, Victoria and Ava. So I think I heard some questions earlier to the other gals about, where do you fall out in the community? For my particular community, it's a very small community, about 800 people total. There's one admiral. She's the first, Seiko Okano, and she's a phenomenal speaker if you ever have the opportunity to invite her. She put on Admiral last year, and she was the first woman admiral that we had since Admiral Page, who was back in the 80s, believe it or not. So there was a very significant gap in between the time where we had flag officers. There are 10 captains right now, although I would tell you 2 of those ladies are going to retire next year. I am the 8th highest ranking engineering duty officer in the Navy. So next year I'll be number 6. So we have 15 commanders, 34 lieutenant commanders, and 64 lieutenants. I would tell you right now, from a total number perspective, we're sitting at about 15% of the engineering duty officer community is women. In my rank, it's 7%. So 7% of the captains in the Navy are women, and I am one of them. So that's me as a midshipman and me as a captain. This slide really talks through a couple of major milestones within the EDO community. In some ways, it's sad that I can put most of the first on one slide, but it speaks to the fact that we are still trailblazers. I think, I heard Leslie and Susan kind of say, in some ways, I look at myself and I say, well, I'm just me. Like, it's not something special. I just do what I do. I wake up and I do my best and I leave the rest. And that's what I do. But when it comes down to it, there is something special about the gals that spoke before me and even me and a lot of the ladies that I'm good friends with. We still are experiencing a lot of firsts in our community. I don't know if you can read at the bottom there, but one of my best friends is Diana Wolfson. She was the first woman public shipyard commander. She took command of Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. I guess that was about a year and a half ago. And then she set a world record. And she is now the commanding officer at Norfolk Naval Shipyard. So she was moved from Puget over here to Norfolk Naval and is in command there as we speak. She's another phenomenal woman and is a great speaker as well. So for me, today was about, kind of empowerment and encouragement of others to continue to blaze the trails, right? There's a lot of folks that are listening right now that are sitting there wondering, well, how do I make a difference, or what am I going to do? I think I would tell you the same thing that I tell the girls every night as I put them to sleep and that's, that you are going to make a difference in this world. You already have, just by being you. And I think that's important to remember, because I think in the world that we're in today, it's always about being more or being better or being different than the person next to you. And honestly, I firmly believe you just have to be yourself and be the best self that you can be, and you will become your own trailblazer in your own right. I think it's important to seek first to understand, so that you understand the perspectives of those around you. You have to be bold. You cannot be afraid to share your voice. I think that's why I say be you, but it's more than just being you, I guess. It's also being willing to be vulnerable enough to show up as the true, authentic you that you were born as, right? And that means that you have to do the scary thing. You have to go out on the limb. You have to open up your mouth. You have to use your voice. So be bold, be fearless, share your story. I think it's so important to share stories with those around us, because it empowers us to be a stronger us, and encourage the women around you, right? On this slide, the top left-hand picture there, I'm standing next to Amy Bauernschmidt. She was my third XO on Lincoln. She will be the first woman commander of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Well, any aircraft carrier, right? So she was just selected for that and will take command here soon. Jennifer Boykin is the first ever woman president of Huntington Ingalls Newport News Shipbuilding. That's pretty phenomenal. The shipbuilding industry in particular has typically been, run by men. So it's huge that she's in that position. The gals that are up on the right-hand corner there, those were all of the women HODs that we had on Lincoln. It's very unusual that you would have 6, women HODs at one time in an aircraft carrier. HODs are heads of departments. There are 19 departments on an aircraft carrier. I don't know that there ever has been that many at one time before. So that was a very unique event. Diana, she and I embracing on sea trials. She was actually the program manager's representative for RCOH while I was the chief engineer. So we worked very closely during that tour. Down in the right-hand corner there, Diana and I are dressed up with a gal named Stephanie Douglas. She is currently NAVCO4, the senior SES at NAVCO4, who owns all maintenance and modernization for all ships, for all of NAVC. Rachel Truss was the judge with me on Lincoln, who we became fast friends and stayed friends. You see me re-enlisting one of the women that worked for me in engineering department. She was a hull technician senior chief. Um,